All right. I'm Kevin Rice, and I am reviewing lesson 181. I trust my brothers who are one with me. And I'll give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you have as we go through every three paragraphs, since we're dealing with 9 paragraphs today. I trust my brothers who are one with me. My colleague Robert Perry put a nice footnote about this particular lesson where he says to trust someone is to have a firm conviction in that person's goodness, to give, quote unquote, your trust to what is good in him, end quote. In the text, chapter 31, section 7. As the text puts it, this does not mean, however, that we must trust that a person's behavior will always express his goodness. Trust here comes from looking past his behavioral errors to his innate goodness, which this lesson describes as sinlessness. It is this purity that lies past his seeming sins that we are trusting. In other words, what we are trusting here is not the shifting tides of time and space. What we are trusting is the invisible, unchangeable nature of the innate goodness that resides in everyone. A trust that places in the indwelling spirit of love that lives within everyone. A trust in the blazing light that lives in everyone in our world. So we go beyond the darkness to the light. We go beyond the appearances and the behaviors and the world of form and effect to the fact of God beyond it, to the fact of the sinlessness that resides in our brothers and sisters. That's it. You say, Kevin, this sounds difficult. It is if you're trusting in your own strength. If you're trusting in your own strength, you have every reason to doubt. You have every reason for anxiety, stress, limitation, and so forth. But we are better than this because we rely upon that higher, better angels within ourselves and our brothers and our sisters as well. I would remind you the difference between the world of form and effect and the world of content and idea. Remember that the world is nothing more than an idea. Okay. Ideas do not leave their source. So whatever idea you're bringing to the dimension that you are experiencing right now is exactly what you are seeing. Right? So the world of form is merely an effect. The world of content, as well, the Course in Miracles says repeatedly that the mind in its natural state is abstract. It deals with the content and the idea that we bring to the world instead of the world of form and bodies. And so therefore we have an opportunity to fixate ourselves on the light beyond the darkness, beyond the appearances that seems to distract us many times during the day. But we can choose once again, as A Course in Miracles says. Choose once again and place yourself among the saviors of the world. When you attack a brother, you proclaim that he is limited by what you have perceived in him. You don't look beyond his errors. Rather, they are magnified, becoming blocks to your awareness of the self. So let's talk about this in twofold ways here. Actually, three ways. A Course in Miracles says that projection makes perception. So let me explain this to you. Projection makes perception. So how do I know that I am projecting? Number one, if I'm feeding guilt in my mind right now, I will see my past full of sin and shame, and I'll see my future full of fear. I don't like this. So what do? I will repress it in my unconscious mind, and I will project it to you. You guys are the problem, not Kevin Rice. All right. So I don't even know that I'm projecting at that moment. But those projections produces the perceptions I make about my brothers and sisters. If the problem is not Kevin Rice, but it's you guys, then my perceptions about you guys begin to arise in my mind, and I believe that those perceptions are true. Projection makes perception. So let's use my spouse here who's with us right now, Aaron, who I dearly love, and I appreciate him. And the relationship is sacred, as our relationship with us together is equally sacred. But let's say that my spouse ticks me off, which has never happened in 19 years, by the way. But if he did tick me off, okay, through introspective, I have to be in charge of my reaction, because what my reacting is coming not from him, but my interpretation and my perceptions that I have laid upon him. All right. So I'm not really seeing my spouse truly. I'm seeing only through the lens, the scope of the egoic mind, which only lives and traffics in darkness. That's it. But I remind myself constantly that I cannot know my own sinlessness until and unless I see that my spouse and my brothers and sisters here is equally full of sinlessness, innocence, and so forth. Now, how do we know that we're innocent? How do we know that we are sinlessness, experiencing sinlessness? It is because the past is over and the future is not here. And so we dive into the eternal timeless now because of this. I remember Ram Dass having a conversation about in 1985, where he says, most people believe that the future is real, but what is happening right now is not. So they are in a process, as I have described previously, that people are futuring themselves and removing themselves of the present moment experience, as what A Course in Miracles refers to as the holy instant, the sinlessness, the innocence, the sacredness of the present moment, as Eckhart Tolle says many times, right? Where he says, accept the present moment as if you had chosen it, work with it and not against it. The same is true in A Course in Miracles, that the kingdom is here. There is no other place. Heaven is now, there is no other time. And this becomes apparent in the enlightened mind when we begin to bring our focus and our attention and our energy into the present moment and cease this useless journey of trying to should ourselves all the time, putting ourselves on the what should be list. Kevin Rice should be a better husband. Kevin Rice should be more gentle. Kevin Rice should do this or that. Look, Kevin Rice, the self-image that we are referring to here, and this is going to be it's going to be difficult maybe to absorb, but sit with it for just a moment. The self-image that we're trying to improve does not exist. The self-image, as A Course in Miracles refers to it as a lifeless self-image created by the mind, is running us and hooking us because that is what we are identifying ourselves with. That's it. So it's very important that we understand as well that we don't have to be afraid of the present moment. But that's why people project themselves into the future or regress themselves into the past, because they think that if they truly knew their glorious magnificence, their innocence, that they probably would run away from it because it's not familiar to them. So slowly and gingerly, we are in a mission to try to bring us to the present moment without judgment, without evaluation, without my perceptions that's coming from my projections to the world. As we let those things go, we begin an experience of what? Unity, oneness, that there's no otherness here. There is no separate entity called Jane Doe or John Doe. There's only one mind, and quantum physics demonstrates this as well. How many minds do we have on this planet? One mind. We do not have 7.5 billion minds. Just one. And we can participate in that one mind, or we can dislodge ourselves, splitting off ourselves from it through judgment and blame and evaluation. In paragraph 2, remove your focus on your brother's sins, and you will experience the peace that comes from faith in sinlessness. Again, we are not putting our faith in the ephemeral. We are not putting our faith in the temporary. We are placing our faith in the permanence, the indwelling, unchanged, unchangeable, infinite consciousness and infinite beingness that you and I are. We are the light of the world. This is why we are here. This is our function. And we know that our function is the light of the world when I begin to extend that light instead of projecting my own unconscious guilt to you. Those are my two choices here. That's it. You say, Kevin, this is so hard. It's so hard to see my brother and my sister beyond the appearances and their behaviors and so forth to the light beyond it, to their sinlessness, their innocence. Well, it's easy for me when I, with great honesty, look through my own psyche, my own mind rather, and ask Kevin, have you ever been stubborn? And the answer is always yes. Have you ever been difficult, Kevin? Yes. Hey, Kevin, have you been stubborn? Yes. Hey, Kevin, have you played and danced with competition? Yes. Hey, Kevin, have you ever trafficked in comparisons? Kevin Rice's body against another person's body? Yes. Hey, Kevin, have you ever exercised judgment? Yes, probably this morning when I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. So you begin to neutralize these unconscious projections when you realize it is me. I have done this thing, and it is this that I will undo. I have dropped a pebble of division into the pool of awareness, and I will see the ramifications of my decision. Two voices, two choices here. Two voices, love or fear, two choices. Those choices are being informed by fear or being informed by love. Paragraph 3, and then I'll answer any questions that you have. Therefore, in practicing today, we first let all such little focuses give way to our great need to let our sinlessness become apparent. The sinlessness will become apparent in us when we see that sinlessness in our brothers and sisters. Look, it's really easy to just judge and use the yardstick of time and space to measure your brother and sister in time and space. So the question on the table for all of us is, hey, Either this person is full of sin and shame, or this person is merely having a call to love, a call to health, a call to sanity. You see the dynamic in the mind that begins to change the trajectory of your relationships with other people when no longer you are saying that this person is full of sin and shame and error, when in fact, this person is merely having a call to love. And my response is merely to do what? Give him or her the love that this person, through compassion and understanding, the love that you and I are. My spouse, for my birthday, bought me a mask. It should be here by tomorrow. And on this mask, it says, teach only love, for that is what you are. Okay? Teach only love, for that is what you are. And you begin to know that you are love incarnate when you begin to embody and envelop the world with that same love, going beyond the appearances of time and space to the indwelling spirit of love that lives within everybody, whether they are aware of it or not, whether they are awakened to it or whether they are sleeping from it. So I open the floor here for any questions or commentary that you have. Just unmute yourself or ask any questions that you have. So the question is, what is the difference between sin and sinlessness? One is entrenched with time and space, and the other one, the sinlessness, are those who abide in the eternal timeless now. Eternity is not what we experience when we die. Eternity is what we are in right now. I cannot, through judgment, point out the sinful nature of my brother and sister without using the yardstick of time and space to do it. I can't judge without going to the past and the future to formulate an evaluation through measurement, the metrics, if you will, of trying to see if my brother or my sister is worthy of my own love, or whether that I'm worthy of my own worth. So sin is the foundation of the egoic mind that rests only in time and space, which is an optical illusion, as Einstein says. Okay. Secondly, seeing my brother or sister full of sin means that I think that I have value in my perceptions, which A Course in Miracles is trying to convey to us, is limited and limited in its scope. We can see this also in Mervyn. If you like science, my spouse is a scientist, and we've had discussions about this, and I love listening to this quantum scientific community at the University of Sussex in England, where they've been very thorough about what's really happening in this dimension and this dream state, that all that we are experiencing is not really our perceptions or interpretations, but we're not really seeing anything through our physical eyes. We're seeing it through the back of the brain. In the darkened glass of the ego, if you could symbolize it in a dream state. You and I don't live in the dream state. We live in reality. But what we do from the back of the brain in the dream state is we produce images. That's it. From electrical impulses that is pulsating in the back of our brains. That's happening in science. But we're not here to traffic in science. We're here to give us the metaphysical interpretation of where finally science is really arriving themselves to the recognition that we can marry metaphysics, spirituality, psychology, and science all together. Because all of them are trying to say one thing and one thing only. As Plato's cave tries to describe the Plato's cave in the Republic, right? Mm-hmm. People being born from being young, shackled, and all they're looking at it inside of a cave. And all they see are the shadows being cast from a fire behind them and the opening of a cave. They think this is reality. When they hear the voices coming from the people outside of the cave, it's being projected on the shadows, and they think that those shadows are talking and speaking and showing what their reality is. Plato and Socrates in a dialogue says, hey, if I tell these people that are shackled in the cave to come out into the light, what's going to happen? They would run away because you remove the familiarity of their quote unquote reality. The same is true here. We're not here to uproot you from this dream state, but try to convey in a gingerly way to how to transform your dream of fear into a dream of love. That's it. The purpose of A Course in Miracles is not to wake you completely right now or uproot you from this living dream, but to explain instead of how to transfer those spots of darkness and sin to a spot of innocence and sinlessness. That means I cannot begin to waken up to the dream state insofar as I am trafficking in sin. As I said 2 weeks ago, every sin I see within my brother, but keeps us both in hell. That's it. As one student said last week, right? This unloving thought about blank is keeping me in hell. So the question is, how do I drop my perceptions of my spouse or someone I'm furious with and to see the Christ in them? Well, recognize with me that what we are responding to here is not my spouse, but my interpretation and my perceptions that I have laid upon him or her. So therefore, my freedom, my liberty, my peace of mind has nothing to do whatsoever with any relationship, including my marital relationship. It has to do with the fact that I on some level have participated in division. I remind the students many times about the first law of chaos from A Course in Miracles, which is basically the first law of the ego, which basically says, I have a set of values here, perceptions and interpretations here, and my spouse over there has a set of values and interpretations over there. Not only do we have two different perceptions and value systems, and that they are different, but my interpretations and my perceptions and value systems is better than him. The moment that I step into the stairwell to hell, when I take the first step in an experience of conflict and division with my spouse, I have done that because I'm basically saying I'm right, he's wrong. But again, what I'm using is my own little limited scope of my perceptions. Okay. Furthermore, we are not saying that we shouldn't judge our brothers and sisters and relationships. We are saying that we are incapable of it. And the same is true of any relationship, including marriage. In order for me to place judgment upon my spouse or a stranger or anybody, I would have to know the upbringing, the imprint that this person has received from their father or mother, the conditioning, the social programming, their environment that brought them to where they are right now, their past grievances and grudges that they hold, their present experiences, and their future goals. I don't know any of these things. But when a person becomes in a place of understanding and compassion, you begin to drop this sword and shield and begin to become more introspective, because you understand that whether this person is having a difficult time, a challenging journey in this world, well, join the club. I have experienced this. And so everybody else has moments of this. But I want to focus on one thing here, because we use the word magnify in paragraph 1. So this is where marriages go south. When we magnify the form, the differences, and ignore the content of love and the purity that flows through the relationship. As the Urantia says, the riverbed is not the river. In other words, your spouse is not a representation of the totality of who he is. Let me explain it this way. The egoic mind thinks that it is the wave on the top of the ocean, and it's at war with the other waves on the surface of the ocean. But that is not its true identification. Its true identification is the depth of the ocean itself. And the same is true about any relationship that we engage with in this world. That we are arresting the mind to form and comparisons and grudges and grievances, and therefore we are essentially closing our eyes to the light that lives beyond our brother or our sister or our husband or wife. That does not mean that you must maintain the form of the marriage, but rather to understand we can instead fixate on the love that flows through the relationship, or the call to love that flows through it, and allow the form of the marriage to take its own way. I want to finish here, 4, 5, 6. A major hazard to success has been involvement with your past and future goals. I'm going to make this real easy here, because this is a huge distraction that we have. And whether people agree with me or not, or the course, I don't care. I say to people, look, chew up the meat, spit out the bones, accept what resonates with you and discard what does not resonate with you. That's easy breezy. A major hazard to success has been involvement with your past and future goals. And we have discussed grievances and grudges. So let's talk about that first. When we hold a grievance or a grudge, we are basically repeating the past over and over and over again. Okay. We are essentially activating the past. How do I activate the past? I activate the past by holding grievances and grudges. Can't let go of the past. But of course, A Miracle says the past is over. And with its passing, the drive for vengeance and attack disappears into the nothingness in which it was born. So it's not the grievance, it is my drive and my desire to hold on to what is already over and done with, the past, and therefore cover over the present moment. So I'm not seeing the holy instant anymore. I'm not seeing the present moment. I'm definitely not diving into it. And also, and this is further in paragraph 4, my future goals. So because I'm still asleep in the mind, I'm planning for the uncertainties of the future. And I'm trying to be a control freak in the process. And it's not very appealing to anybody. Okay. So we deactivate the past through extreme forgiveness. We let go of our desire to control our brothers and sisters, our spouses, our families, and we let go of the uncertainties of the future. And what happens is the miracle arises out of that mystery. We don't want to live in the know, we want to live in the mystery. Because we don't know what's in our own best interest. But an indwelling spirit of love, light, joy, does know what's in our best interest. As of course the miracle says, God's voice speaks to you, but you do not hear it because you're too preoccupied by your own voice, that voice of the ego, that voice of fear. And finally, somebody asked me last week, called me up, Kevin, what's your goal? Show me what your goals are. I said, my only goal is God. No. I get that. I get the metaphysics behind that. But seriously, what's your goal? And with certainty, I don't have any goals. My only goal is God. That's it. So the manifestations of beauty and the gifts that arise each and every day to us happens when we place our focus and practice the presence of God. That this is sacred. This is holy. All of you here are sinless. And time goes by without its touch upon us. Period. The infinite consciousness, the infinite beingness that you and I are is never, ever, ever going to go away. Yes, we can temporarily use this self-image, this body called Kevin Rice, to communicate love, light, joy, unity to the world. Yes, that's a wonderful purpose and a function. But that is not who I am. That's merely a vehicle. My infinite consciousness, my infinite beingness, which you are included with that knowingness, is here and now, here and now. My only goal is God. My only goal is to see God in everyone and seeing it manifested as sinlessness or innocence or sacredness. Paragraph 5, how can this matter? For the past is gone, the future much but imagined. These concerns are but the defenses against present change of focus and perception, nothing more. In other words, we're talking about dream states here. So because we're talking about dream states, all that the egoic mind does is through being defensive and with an attack modality to defend the self-image in the dream state, the living dream state. And therefore, that is where the focus is. That is where the attention is. That is where the energy is. So what do I lose? I lose who I am. I lose my infinite consciousness. I lose my infinite light. I can't judge myself for this when I slip my mind from time to time. Why? Who can judge a person who's merely dreaming? That's it. You suspend that judgment and move on. And I want to go back to this magnification that the ego does in paragraph 6. And if a brother's sins occur to us, our narrowed focus will restrict our sight and turn our eyes upon our own mistakes, which we will magnify and call our sin. So if I see a sin within my brother, I will turn it back on me, because I cannot project my own unconscious guilt to another person and seeing them as sinful without knowing that I myself is equally sinful and full of crap. Hello? You all with me here? Every sin I see within my brother, but keeps us both in hell. From the course, I use this every day. It's on my door in the living room. Because I will to know myself, I see you as God's son and my brother. Because I will to know myself, I see you as God's daughter and my sister. And yeah, it could be a pickle. I would love to call my family in Kansas City and say, hey, I got some news for you. But I don't do that. Look, I drink green tea. I put aromas, scents, and tries to attach myself 100% with my true identity and my reality. But sometimes I just want to slap someone. That's okay. Enlightenment does not ask that you never have those moments of indecision and doubts and so forth. It does ask us to not keep it. That's it. Paragraph 6, it is not this that I would look upon. I trust my brothers who are one with me. In other words, it's a reference also in A Course in Miracles, and I put this on my book here every day. To the ego's darkened glass, I need but say, I will not look there, because I know that these images are not true. You all having a good time? Thumbs up, thumbs up. Okay, finally, paragraph 8. Nor do we ask for fantasies, for what we seek to look upon is really there. And as our focus goes beyond the mistakes, we will behold a holy, sinless world. Look, A Course in Miracles has a section called The Shadowy Figures of the Past. And one version is called The Shadows of the Past. And what it basically is saying is, you're not dealing with your spouse or your present relationship. You're dealing with the shadowy figures of the past that you have not fully forgiven. Those people in the past has not given to you what you required them to do, to give you a happiness, to give you love, to give you relationship, connection, and so forth. And so therefore, they're the shadowy figures of the past. But those shadowy figures in the past will pop up over and over and over again in another form, in another body, until and unless we can truly utilize extreme forgiveness, letting us know that the past is over. The future is not here. But what do? We play and dance with fantasies. We do. I don't want to get specific about this because it can be a little too specific. When you close your eyes, what do? You fantasize about the uncertainties of the future. You fantasize of a cherished past relationship that is no longer here because they ticked you off. And then finally, the world which once proclaimed our sins becomes the proof that we are sinless. And our love for everyone we look upon attests to our remembrance of the holy self which knows no sin. In other words, I remember yesterday I stepped outside temporarily and was a little afraid. And I immediately went to that section from the text in the Course in Miracles, chapter 19, where it says, take this from me and judge it for me. Specifically, it says, take this from me and look upon it, judging it for me. Let me not see it as a sign of sin and death, nor use it for destruction. and teach me how not to make of it an obstacle to peace, but let you use it for me to facilitate its coming. I know God is not the author of fear. You are. I am. So it's through awareness and my introspective abilities to look at this fear and to transform it into fear, or into love, to transform that darkness into light, transform that impermanence to the permanent, and allow myself to recognize of who I am by knowing who you are, the light of the world, innocent, sacred, and beautiful, setting aside the appearances of the darkened glass of the ego, and begin to journey with God, with our mighty companions, that's you, walking with God to love. A Course in Miracles says, to give and to receive are one in truth. I will receive what I am giving now. If you are inspired to support Unity on the Bay and myself, you can text UOTB to the phone number 73256 and you'll receive a link to enter your donation, and then drop down to ACIM-Kevin Rice to indicate that your offering is directed to this class. Or you can give through the website, unityonthebay.org/give, and drop down to ACIM-Kevin Rice under Select Fund. Your donation goes to support Unity on the Bay and the time and value we put into providing these teachings. I invite you to also visit onlylovingthoughts.com for all our A Course in Miracles videos and much, much more. Thank you, and thanks for sharing this A Course in Miracles Zoom class with other people.